Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The notification sound was not loud, but in the suffocating silence of the boardroom, it sounded like a gunshot. Ren Xiang froze, his finger hovering millimeters above the sleek glass of his tablet, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs that threatened to crack his sternum. Every head at the long mahogany table turned, not toward him, but toward the man sitting at the head. The message, projected inadvertently onto the massive 8K screen at the front of the room alongside the quarterly revenue charts, was glowing in a cheerful, mocking green bubble. It was a message meant for his online gaming partner, a sarcastic complaint about his workload sent to a contact labeled hubby in a moment of sleep-deprived delirium. But Ren hadn't messaged his game partner. He had messaged the company-wide executive group chat. And the message read, Asterisk, hubby, I'm tired. Bring me home. Asterisk, the silence stretched, thin and brittle as spun sugar. Ren, known as the Iron Secretary, the man who could organize a hostile takeover before his morning coffee, felt the blood drain from his face until he was as pale as the marble floors beneath them. He moved to scramble for the controls, to delete the message, to cast himself out of the window, anything. But then, a darker, deeper sound vibrated through the room. Ding! A reply appeared on the massive screen, right below Ren's fatal error. It was from the CEO. Asterisk, be patient. 5 more minutes. Asterisk, the air in the room didn't just shift, it evaporated. The board of directors, a collection of old sharks and hungry wolves, looked between the stoic secretary and the terrifying CEO, Caleb Thorne. Caleb didn't look up from his documents. He didn't smile. He simply turned a page, his gold-rimmed glasses catching the harsh fluorescent light, masking the predatory glint in his eyes. Shall we continue? Caleb's voice was a low baritone, smooth as velvet wrapped around a jagged rock. Unless you all wish to keep my partner waiting. The meeting ended in record time. Ren didn't remember packing up his laptop. He didn't remember the elevator ride up to the penthouse office. His mind was a chaotic storm of panic. Hubby. He had called the tyrant of Thorne Enterprises hubby. And Caleb had answered. Ren Xiang stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of the CEO's office, looking out at the sprawling, rain-slicked city of Neoviridia. The gray sky mirrored his internal landscape. He was ruined. He would be fired. His reputation as the perfect, untouchable right hand of the Thorne Empire was shattered. The heavy oak doors creaked open. Caleb entered. Caleb Thorne was a masterpiece of masculine intimidation. Standing at 6'4", with broad shoulders that strained the fabric of his bespoke charcoal suit, he moved with the languid grace of an apex predator. His hair was the color of midnight, swept back to reveal a face of sharp angles and colder eyes. Ren straightened his spine, clutching his tablet like a shield. Sir, Mr. Thorne, I have my resignation letter drafted. It was a technological error. A slip of the finger. I was hallucinating from fatigue. I will clear out my desk immediately. Caleb walked past him, the scent of sandalwood and expensive scotch trailing in his wake. He sat at his massive desk, loosened his tie with a sharp tug, and finally looked at Ren. Resignation denied. Ren blinked. Sir, you asked me to take you home, Caleb said, his voice dropping an octave, turning the air in the room heavy and hot. I intend to fulfill that request. Mr. Thorne, please. The board thinks we are lovers, Caleb cut in, his eyes narrowing. And for the next 6 months, you are going to ensure they continue to think that. Ren felt his knees weaken. Excuse me. Caleb stood up and rounded the desk, closing the distance between them until Ren was forced to tilt his head back to meet his gaze. The power dynamic was palpable. Ren, usually so composed, felt small, cornered. My stepmother is pushing for a merger with the Vane family, Caleb explained, his voice devoid of emotion, yet his eyes burned with intensity. She wants me to marry Isabella Vane to secure the shipping routes. I need a reason to refuse that is ironclad. Being engaged to my fiercely loyal, highly competent secretary is the perfect shield. You want me to fake a relationship with you? To stop a merger? I want you to be my hubby, Caleb said, the word rolling off his tongue with a dark, possessive weight that made Ren's breath hitch. You already announced it to the company. To retract it now would make us both look incompetent. And I do not tolerate incompetence, Run. Rin swallowed hard. This is insane. The rumors. Let them talk. Caleb reached out, his large hand brushing a stray lock of hair from Rin's forehead. The touch was electric, shocking Rin into stillness. Caleb's fingers lingered near Rin's temple, dangerously close, dangerously intimate. Unless, of course, the idea of belonging to me is so repulsive. It wasn't repulsive. That was the problem. For 3 years, Rin had served Caleb Thorne. He had organized his life, managed his wars, and protected his secrets. Somewhere along the way, amidst the late nights and high-stakes deals, Rin's admiration had twisted into a jagged, painful attraction he had buried under layers of professionalism. I have conditions, Rin managed to whisper, trying to salvage a shred of his dignity. Caleb smirked, a dangerous curve of lips that promised trouble. Negotiate with me, Secretary Rin. I'm listening. The charade began immediately, and it was torture. Rin was used to the shadows. He was the force behind the throne, the invisible hand. Now he was on display. Caleb insisted on driving him to work. He insisted on lunch in public venues. He touched Rin constantly, a hand on the small of his back as they entered elevators, a thumb stroking his knuckles during meetings. It was performance art, Rin told himself. Caleb was just a very dedicated actor. But the lines began to blur 3 weeks later, during the annual gala at the Thorne estate. The ballroom was a sea of silk and diamonds, a Shark Tank in black tie. Rin stood by the bar, nursing a sparkling water, watching Caleb navigate the room. Caleb looked regal, a dark prince holding court. So, you're the little secretary who climbed into the emperor's bed. Rin turned. Isabella Vane stood there, draped in red velvet, holding a flute of champagne like a weapon. Her eyes were sharp, assessing, and filled with malice. Ms. Vane, Rin said coolly. I am the executive assistant to the CEO. My private life is none of your concern. Oh, please, Isabella scoffed, stepping closer. We all know it's a ploy. Caleb doesn't do relationships. He uses people until they break. You're just a pawn to keep me away. Once he secures the board's vote next month, you'll be in the trash. She reached out, her manicured nail tapping the lapel of Rin's suit. He doesn't love you. He's incapable of it. You're just a convenient warm body. Rin felt a spike of cold anger. Not for himself, but for the dismissal of everything he did for Caleb. He opened his mouth to retort, but a shadow fell over them. Isabella. Caleb's voice was ice. He appeared at Rin's side, his arm immediately snaking around Rin's waist, pulling him flush against his side. The grip was tight, possessive. Caleb, Isabella smiled, her voice dripping honey. I was just telling your assistant how quaint he looks tonight. My fiancé, Caleb corrected, his tone leaving no room for argument. And if you ever speak to him with that tone again, I will buy your father's company, dismantle it brick by brick, and leave the rubble on your front lawn. Isabella paled. The music seemed to stop in their vicinity. Caleb didn't look at her again. He turned his attention solely to Rin. He took the glass from Rin's hand and set it down, then lifted Rin's chin with his fingers. Are you all right? Caleb asked, and for the first time, the mask slipped. There was raw, unadulterated fury in his eyes, but beneath it, panic. Rin stared at him. This wasn't acting. Caleb Thorne didn't threaten corporate warfare for a fake fiancé. I'm fine, Rin breathed. Good, Caleb murmured. His gaze dropped to Rin's lips. Because I've been wanting to do this all night, and I'm tired of waiting. Caleb kissed him. It wasn't a chaste, showy kiss for the cameras. It was acclaiming. Caleb's mouth was hot and demanding, his tongue sweeping into Rin's mouth with a hunger that made Rin's knees buckle. Rin grabbed Caleb's lapels to steady himself, a whimper trapped in his throat. The world spun away, the gala, the lights, the judging eyes. There was only the taste of scotch and Caleb, the crushing pressure of his arms, the overwhelming heat of his body. When they broke apart, Rin was breathless, his lips swollen and red. Caleb stared at him, his pupils blown wide, his chest heaving. Let's go home, Caleb growled. The car ride back to Caleb's penthouse was silent, thick with unsaid words. Rin sat rigid, his mind reeling. That kiss, it had shattered his defenses. When they entered the penthouse, the tension snapped. Why did you do that? Rin demanded, his voice trembling as the door clicked shut. That was unnecessary. The Vanes were watching, but you didn't have to. You think I did that for the Vanes? Caleb stalked toward him, shedding his jacket and throwing it onto the floor. You think I give a damn what they see? We have a contract. Ren backed up until he hit the wall of the foyer. This is supposed to be fake. Is it? Caleb slammed his hands against the wall on either side of Ren's head, boxing him in. Tell me, Ren, when you typed that message, who were you really thinking of? Some gamer across the ocean? Or the man you spend 18 hours a day with? The man whose schedule you know better than your own heartbeat? Ren couldn't breathe. Caleb was too close. It was an accident. Was it? Caleb leaned in, his nose brushing against Ren's. Because when I saw that message, I didn't see an error. I saw an opportunity. I saw the only chance I might ever have to claim what I've wanted for years. Ren's eyes widened. Years? Caleb laughed, a dark, self-deprecating sound. You act like the perfect machine, Ren. Cold. Efficient. Untouchable. I tried to keep it professional. I tried to be the boss you needed. But watching you, seeing you organize my life while I couldn't even be a part of yours, it was driving me mad. Caleb's hand moved to Ren's throat, his thumb tracing the pulse that fluttered there like a trapped bird. I didn't answer that text to save the company, Caleb whispered, his lips grazing Ren's ear. I answered it because for 1 second, you called me yours. And I'm not letting you take it back. Caleb, Ren's voice broke. We can't. The power dynamic. The board. Forget the board. Caleb's grip on the wall tightened, cracking the plaster. I am the king of this city. I can burn it all down if I have to. But I cannot walk into that office one more day and pretend I don't want to rip that suit off you and mark you until everyone knows who you belong to. Ren looked into Caleb's eyes, the eyes of a tyrant, yes, but also a man who was desperately, painfully in love. The walls Ren had built around his heart crumbled into dust. You're an arrogant bastard, Ren whispered, tears stinging his eyes. I know, Caleb admitted. But I'm your husband. You said so yourself. Ren let out a shaky laugh, and then he surged forward, grabbing Caleb's tie and pulling him down. This time, Ren initiated the kiss. It was desperate, messy, and full of years of suppressed longing. Caleb groaned, lifting Ren up against the wall, wrapping his legs around his waist. They stumbled toward the bedroom, leaving a trail of clothes and inhibitions behind them. The morning sun filtered through the sheer curtains, illuminating the chaotic state of the master bedroom. Ren woke slowly, his body aching in a way that felt entirely too good. He shifted, realizing he was pinned. Caleb was asleep, his arm thrown heavily over Ren's waist, his face buried in the crook of Ren's neck. The terrifying CO looked younger in his sleep, the harsh lines of his face softened. Ren reached out, tracing the line of Caleb's jaw. Caleb stirred, his arm tightening instinctively. One dark eye opened, focusing on Ren with lazy, satisfied warmth. Morning, Caleb rasped, his voice deep with sleep. Morning, Ren replied softly. Regrets? Caleb asked, a hint of tension returning to his frame. Ren smiled, a genuine, rare smile that lit up his usually stoic face. Only that I didn't send that text sooner. Caleb huffed a laugh and pulled Ren closer, burying his face in Ren's hair. Check your phone. Ren frowned, reaching for his phone on the nightstand. He turned it on and gasped. A new notification from the company group chat. Sent at 3 a.m. by Caleb Thorne. Asterisk update, he's home. And he's staying. Anyone who has a problem with the new chairman of the board's household can submit their resignation by noon. Asterisk Ren looked at Caleb, horrified and amused. You didn't. I did. Caleb smirked, kissing Ren's shoulder. Now put the phone away, hubby. You have a very demanding boss, and he requires your immediate attention. Ren dropped the phone. It didn't matter anymore. The secret was out, the lines were crossed, and for the first time in his life, the Iron Secretary was exactly where he wanted to be. And that is how the tyrant of the boardroom finally secured his most valuable asset. If you enjoyed seeing Caleb lose his composure for the sake of love, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you risk your entire career on a single, accidental text message if it meant a chance with the boss? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then.